I see my color now.
Yep, we are live, by the way.
I can't hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
This is exactly where I am. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. I'm gonna see if you can hear me. Kelly, are you able to hear me? If you can hear me, leave a one. Can you hear me? Testing, testing, 1, 2. Testing, testing, 1, 2. Give me a second. I'm doing some tests to make sure my sound is working, so bear with me. If you're there and you're able to hear me, if you can put a 1 in the chat. Okay, bear with me here. Oh, okay. It looks like we do have sound. I just verified. Okay. Yep. Yep.
I can't hear you on here. I can't hear you on YouTube. I can't hear you on here.
Is your volume all the way up?
Yes, this is a problem though every time. It's irritating.
And so it's a volume thing? You can't hear it? Okay. But we'll do some testing another time and we'll make it work another time. So okay. I was able to hear you, but I don't know why you couldn't hear me.
Well, they can hear us on YouTube.
Yep. Fair enough.
Okay, bye.
Love you. Oh, by the way, yeah, I just realized I wasn't muted. That being said, we're working on some I was trying to do a combo with my wife. So looks like that's not going to work out this time, as I'm sure you probably heard if you're watching this stream. But so again, this is real life here. But that being said, as you can see in the title, you know, we are going to be going over the following week of our series Approved. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Before we get started, we're going to start out with some prayer. We're going to go to the Most High, and you know, ask Him to preside over this. So let's go ahead and get that started. Abba Yahuwah, we thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing. We thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for we thank you for this time. We thank you for your word. I ask that today, as we go into your word, that you speak to us, that you first of all speak to me, and that you might use me for your purpose. We thank you for all that you do. And we love you. We give you all the glory and all the honor and all the praise. These and all of the blessings we ask in the mighty name of your son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Hallelujah. Okay. That being said, we are on week 5 of this series, Approved. If this is your first time tuning in to this series, again, this is a part of a larger series. And we are going through a year-wide study of the Word of the Most High. And if you've been tuning into my channel, you can see that you've seen some of the history with this. But that being said, I'll kind of pull up a slide of my channel. So again, my channel is no longer vain. Again, this is part of that series, part of this Approved series. The very first video of the Approved series is this right here. Don't listen to me. I'm nobody. And that one talked about, for one, kind of my purpose of this series, but then also a lot of the details and a lot of the background that kind of goes into it. So, if you have a chance, well, first of all, if you have a chance to get to my channel, I'd love for you to hop on. And you know, if in general, if you've watched these videos, they've blessed you, hop on there, go ahead and subscribe, and then also share my videos with other folks. So that being said, we'll go ahead and get on to this week's study. So that being said, I'll kind of give a little recap on last week. We finished up with how the nation of Yahsharel, also called Israel today, how they made it to Egypt in the first place. So, you know, it got to talking about the story of Joseph, how he was sold by his brothers into Egypt. And through that, the Most High literally used him to bless his brothers, his father, his entire family, by putting him in a position of power within Egypt while he was there. And he was able to literally save his family, from a famine. So, and what you'll see is in that time, through him and through the nation of Yahsharel and through the Most High's people, not only were they blessed, but to be honest, the entire nation of Egypt was blessed. So they were saved, obviously, from famine, but even more, they amassed immense wealth because of that. In that time that they were there, they were the only ones with food, so people were literally coming to them in order to eat, because they were literally the only ones in that area, in the region, in the world that had anything to eat. So people would give them their wealth in exchange for food. And eventually it got to the point to where once the wealth was gone, they literally gave themselves. So they amassed the wealth, but then they also amassed the slaves because of that. So So that being said, that's where we end up today. And I kind of got into some of today because I got to talking ahead, but got to talking about chapter 48 in Genesis, which was actually part of this week's lesson, but how Jacob, aka Yahsharel, um, how he blessed his sons, the sons of Joseph, and and yeah, gave them his blessings. So, but that brings us to today. So at this point, they are in the nation of Yahsharel, and yeah, they are in the nation, and now we are to a point to where. Here, let me get there in my Bible as well. No, Genesis 48. And yeah. So the first and I'll go ahead and transition into this slide. The first we talked about 48 last week. 49, he gets into going from son to son, blessing them, and in some cases not, such as literally there towards the start. He went from the sons in age, and so in age order. So chapter 49, you see verse 3. He said, "Yes, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and excellence of power." And he says, "Unstable as water." And he says, "Thou shalt not excel, because you wentest up to thy father's bed, and then defilest it. Then defilest thou it. He went up into my couch." And so, so he goes through literally each son, blesses some, and quite the opposite for others. And so that's primarily what chapter 49 was all about. And then at the very end of it, you see, and he also commanded them where to bury him. He's like, "Hey, don't leave me here in Egypt. Take me to the land of my fathers, into the land of Canaan." So, and he said, and when Jacob made an end of his commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into the bed and yielded up the ghost, and he was gathered unto his people. So, so at that point, that's when he died. So now after he dies, the brothers, of course, picking up on last week, who sold him into slavery, are now like, "Okay, now daddy is dead, and this is the same dude that we that we put into sold into slavery when he was younger." So basically what they did is they kind of came up with a plan. So let's see. Verse 15, here we are. He says, "And when Joseph's brethren saw that their father was dead, they said, Joseph will peradventure hate us, and will certainly requite us of all the evil that we did unto him. And they sent a messenger to Joseph, saying, Thy father did command us before he died. So ye shall say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren, and their sin they did unto thee, and now pray thee, forgive the trespasses of the servants of God, of Yah, of thy father, of Elohiym of thy father." And Joseph went when they spake unto him. And long story short is he ended up basically saying, it's like, hey, don't trip. Because bottom line, but like you said, verse 19 is like, am I in the place of Yah? But in verse 20, he starts talking about purpose. He says, but as for you, you thought evil against me, but Yah meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. And so that's where he is. He's like, he saw the purpose of what the Most High did, and they were worried, but he's like, no, you know, this was all the Most High's doing, and so y'all need not worry. And so dealt with them in wisdom and forgiveness. Give me just a second. Sorry that my kids are giving me signs on the window, so I'm doing this from home. So that being said, but this brings us into Exodus. So now, that is the finish of Genesis. So now we're in Exodus, and you now get to chapter 1, verse 8, and here's where things start to change. So at this point, as it says, verse 6, Joseph died and all his brethren and all that generation. Now you get to verse 8. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. Okay, so Joseph is gone. There've been a couple generations that have passed, and you got this new king that's now in charge. The previous king had the honor for Jacob and his people, and knew what a blessing that he was and the people were upon the nation of Egypt. But now you got this new king in charge, and it's like, okay, look, verse 9, and he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. So come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when they falleth out any war, they shall join also unto our enemies and fight against us. So get up, or excuse me, so get them up out of the land. And so what they ended up doing with the children of Yahsharel is they appointed taskmasters and inevitably put them into slavery. And so and after a while they were in slavery, you had the king also put a decree, because they were multiplying, they were getting big, they were being blessed and they were multiplying. And so inevitably he put out a decree to kill all of the sons. Okay. And verse 17 here, as it says, but the midwives feared Yah and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. Okay. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have ye done this thing and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and delivered before the midwives came unto them. And so basically they're saying, it's like, man, they were just too quick. It's like, we tried to go in there and do what you said, but they just popped them out before we even got a chance to get there. But that being said, the Most High dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied. And but he saw favor upon the midwives because of what they were doing. So lead into this little baby, okay, Moses. Okay, so basically what happens is now you have Moses here. He was one of because the midwives didn't do it. Basically, he commanded the people to do it. Basically saying, you see a male baby, you just go kill it. And so fast forward, you now have Moses, and Moses is born to his mom and daddy. And what he does, or what his mom, knowing what was to happen if he were found out, basically built a little a floating boat, baby sized, and floated it down the river, and had his sister watch it as it went along. Well, the river ends up taking this this baby into the right in front of the palace. And so you got verse 5, the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself in the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side, and she saw the ark among the flags, and she sent her maid to fetch it. And she saw the child, behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion upon him and said, this is one of the Hebrew children. And so then his sister, or then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she might nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's child said to her and the maid, and went to the child's mother. So basically, inevitably, the daughter of Pharaoh, who literally just put this decree, finds this baby, and of course, as the daughter, she got some special privileges. She got to keep the baby, and in that, you have the daughter who just happened to be there, who of course had been following the baby down the river, and was in the perfect position to then insert mama back into this. So that being said, inevitably Moses was then raised by the daughter of Pharaoh and as one of her sons. Okay, so now so he grew up as literally as one of the sons of Pharaoh. Excuse me, one of the, I guess, call it grandsons of Pharaoh, because it was his daughter that inevitably raised him. So, so you go down to verse 13. He grew up, and he saw one of the Egyptian men that was basically beating one of the Hebrew men, one of his brothers. Well, one of his people. So, and that's what it means by that word for brethren. But one of his people, one of the Hebrews, and had mercy upon him, and he inevitably stood up for that, for the man. And he didn't see the person, or he didn't see anybody looking, and he actually killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. Well, he thought he got away with it, and then you get down to verse 13, and there were two Hebrew men that were actually fighting against each other, and he's trying to say something to him. He's like, and the guy then he's like, I mean, who are you? I mean, what are you gonna do to me? Are you gonna kill me like you killed the Egyptian man? And at that point, that scared the crap out of Moses, and literally he ran, because at that point he knew that it was out there that that he killed an Egyptian, and he knew what that meant for him. So at that point, he got out of Dodge and ran to Midian. So this is where he actually inevitably meets his wife. So in Midian, he meets a woman, and let's see. Here we are. So there's a woman that is drawing water, and some shepherds actually ran the women out the water. Well, Moses inevitably had their back, and because of that, they went and told Daddy. Daddy's like, well, why are you leaving there? Brought him into the house, and brought him into the house and ate dinner with him. And at that point, he gave Moses Zipporah, who was his daughter. Okay, and ergo, you have a son. So now, one point with this chapter right here is understand that the children of Yahsharel are still in bondage. And here's what it says. It says, and it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Yahsharel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up to Yah by reason of their bondage. And he heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And like we remembered in last week, he literally can confirm to each generation his covenant of their children. And so now at this point, Yah's like, hey, he honors his word. And so now he's one day Moses is just out there just chilling. And he's taking care of the sheep, and next thing you know, he sees this bush that is literally on fire. But the weird thing about it is it's on fire, but yet, if you've ever watched a fire, that you normally, as the fire burns, whatever it is gets smaller. But that's the thing, is the bush was on fire, but the bush was not going anywhere. And so it intrigued him. So he got closer to see what it was. And then the angel of Yah saw that he turned aside and says, and Yah called him, and Elohiym called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. He said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. And so he's like, okay. So at this point, now this part, it kind of gets really interesting. So he's now talking to the Most High in the form of a bush that's on fire but not being consumed. So in talking to them, he says, he's like, hey, I've heard my people. I remember my promise to Yahsharel, and I'm going to save them. And so now what actually ends up happening, because we know the story of Moses and how the great things that were accomplished. Well, I'm saying we know, as I'm not going to make that assumption, but Moses goes on to accomplish a bunch of things great. But you look here in his early goings, his first encounters with the Most High, and he was not a man of great faith, because let's scroll down to verse 14. And let's just say he starts, he questions and then starts making excuses. But 13, Moses said unto Elohiym, behold, when I come unto the children of Yahsharel and say to them, the Elohiym of your fathers has sent me, and they say to me, what is his name? What should I say unto them? And Yah said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, and he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Yahsharel, I am hath sent you. So this is Exodus chapter, here we are, chapter 3. So in that verse 14, in Hebrew it's Ahaya Asher Ahaya. I am that I am. And so he's saying, tell the children that Ahiah has sent me unto you. And so you look at, let's go back to the tools. And wait a minute. H1961. Haya. So, and you see the translations. Where is it at? So, was, come to pass, came, has been, were, happened, become, pertain, better for thee. Inevitably, I am. And one of the things that I have learned as far as when it comes down to the Hebrew is a lot of times there is no actual tense to it or a tense to it. So so a lot of it comes with the context of the word. So, but this is the word that inevitably is being translated as the I am, Ahaya. And that, here we are, a share. So Ahaya, a share, Ahaya is inevitably what that word is. And again, one of the resources that that I pointed out in my first video of this series, the Don't Listen to Me, I'm Nobody. I talked about the Sefer, which is another version. So, which is one of the good things that, like, reading that verse in the Sefer is pretty cool. It gets into it uses a lot of those actual words and those actual names as well. And it helps to bring some additional context to that sometimes as well. But let's go and get back to it. Ahaya, Asher, Ahaya, I am that I am. So tell the children of Yahsharel that Ahaya has sent me unto you. And that's what he's saying. So that being said, verse. So that's what he said. Now you get into he tells them what he's going to do, and verse 4 is when the excuses start. And to be honest, it's legit excuses, especially thinking of, oh my, there we are. Thinking of, he knows who he is, and he knows he's not anybody special. And so here's what he says. He says, well, but behold, they will not believe me or nor hearken to my voice, for they will say, Yahuwah hath not appeared unto me. And he overcomes this first one. He's like, what's in your hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. So literally works a miracle through Moses. And then so he throws his staff on the ground, and he then tells him to pick it up in his hand, and when he picks it up, it turns right back into a rod. Okay. And so and with this right here, and what is happening, he's showing him what he's about to do, because what he says is what he tells Moses is that he's literally going to make you. He tells Moses that he's literally going to make him almost as a god in Pharaoh's eyes, and he said, "It's like I'm gonna, through you, make you larger than life in order to give myself the glory out of this." Okay, and so he's showing him how he's going to do it. So this first one, he turned his staff into serpent and right back. Then the next one, he said, "Put forth thine hand," and take it by the tail, and it became around his hand. So now, verse 6, he says, from here, he says, and Yah said furthermore unto him, put now thine hand into thine bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, pulls it out, and his hand was leprous as snow. So basically, he puts it in there, and we're going to use, his hand was leprous. So basically his hand, and you'll see, yep, it's a disease, but actually in other translations, that same word and another characteristics, and actually other translations use a different word. Where are we at? Sorry. Let's go back to verse 4. Let's give me chapter 4, verse 6. We look at other translations, and that same word translates, it had become as white as snow. Okay, and so that snow is actually, so NIV uses the word white as snow. That the New King James Version, it says leprous like snow. New Living Translation says his hand was white as snow with a severe skin disease. And so Amplified says leprous as white as snow. So inevitably, his hand turned white. His hand was not white before. And so that was a miracle that the Most High worked. He put it in there. His hand turned leprous as snow and white. And then he puts it back into his bosom, plucked it out again, and beheld it turned again as the rest of his body, as the rest of his flesh. Okay, so that was another piece right there. So he's literally showing Moses that inevitably I got you. But verse 10, Moses said, but I am not eloquent, neither therefore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. It's like, hey, I'm not public speaking ain't my thing. It's like, yo, Most High, I think you got the wrong dude. I'm not one to talk out in front of people. And the Most High said, who hath made it, or who hath made a man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb or deaf, or the seeing or the blind? Have not I, the Most High? And so it's like, yeah. I mean, it's like, don't you understand? It's like, I can take care of that, But after a handful of excuses, you get to verse 14, and it says, and the anger of the Most High was kindled against Moses. And he said, is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? It's like, you know what? I know he can speak well. And behold, you know what? He's actually on the way to meet you. And so, so either way it goes, your excuses out the window. If you don't think you can talk, I'll use Aaron to take care of that stuff. Either way it goes, you're going. And so, and we'll let him be your spokesman. Verse 16, and kind of like I was saying before, it says, he'll be thy spokesman unto the people, and he shall be even he shall be to thee instead of a mouth. So you saying you ain't got you can't talk very well? It's like, well, he will be your mouth. He will be like your mouth. Okay, and you shall be unto him in the stead of God. Okay, and so inevitably you are speaking on my behalf. It's like he'll speak on your behalf, you'll be on my behalf. And that's how this is gonna work. Okay. And he said, take that rod, and that's how you're gonna do those signs. Okay. So at that point, he returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, told him what happened, and told him where he's about to go. So so now he's on the road to Egypt, and here's one piece right here is if you remember in last week's lesson, one of the signs of the covenant and one of the commands is that you circumcise the firstborn of all of your young. Well, Moses' son was not circumcised. So you have verse 23. Excuse me. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Verse 22 and 23. Thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith Yahuwah, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And here we go. And I say unto thee, let go my son, and that will. Well, hold up. You know what? Oh wait, yeah. Here we are. Here we go. Verse 24. Here's where we're at. He said, and it came to pass by the way of the end that Yah met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah, who was his wife, took a sharp stone and cut the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet, and said, surely a bloody husband thou art to me. And so his wife literally circumcised him and said, he's like, hey, is like the Most High. He had made that a commandment. You were not obeying his commandment. You gotta be right in order to serve him. And that's what he did. So his wife literally circumcised him right there. And but yeah, so that's on the way to Egypt. So now you go into chapter 5, and that's where we get into now he's actually speaking to Pharaoh. And so this first verse is when he first talked to Pharaoh. He said, let my people go, i.e. part of the title of this. He said, let my people go that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, well, who is Yahuwah that I will obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not Elohiym, neither will I let Israel go. Now, in previous chapters as well, I didn't go through it, but again, this is something to be read together. But literally, he told Moses what he was going to do. He said, he's like, I'm literally going to harden the heart of Pharaoh. Okay, he's literally what the Most High inevitably sought to do is to make an example out of Pharaoh. Okay, and you'll see this as we go along. And so, but in this original conversation, it's like he did the staff. Well, he throws down the staff, but then so do Pharaoh's magicians, and they do something similar, and their staffs also turn into serpents. But here's one difference, though. Okay. Moses and Aaron's staffs actually ate the serpents of Pharaoh's, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but long story short, out of this original conversation, instead of actually freeing the people, he literally made their work harder. Okay, and so then the people actually ended up coming to Moses and start getting mad at him because it's like, hey, you talk to him, and instead of getting better, it's getting worse. Okay, yeah, they're like, instead of getting better, it's getting worse. Well, why'd you even come? It was like, you ain't helping nothing. And that's where they at. So and this is where the Most High kind of hops in. He's like, here he is. It says, then Yahuwah said unto Moses, thou shalt see what I'm going to do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand, he shall literally drive them out of his land. So, and he said, I also have heard the groaning of the children of Yahsharel, sorry, this is verse 5. I also have heard the groaning of the children of Yahsharel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. So the Most High is real serious about his covenant. So, and here he goes doubting himself again. And Moses said, behold, I am of uncircumcised lips. How shall Pharaoh hearken unto me? So he was not a confident man at this point. Okay, so here we are. He said, I have made thee an L unto Pharaoh. Okay. And Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Okay. And so when he went unto Pharaoh, he was actually 83 years old. So verse 7. Just another note. Fourscore, a score is 20 years. So 80 is 80 and 3 years old. Okay. And as I said earlier, I thought I might have been jumping ahead, and it looks like I was. And this is at that point where he cast his staff and it becomes a serpent. The magicians did the same thing, and Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. Okay. Well, that being said, like the Most High said before, I'm going to harden the Pharaoh's heart. And actually, this might be a lesson right here. Okay. You mess with the Most High's people. You mess with his people, he will literally want to make an example out of you. You're about to see a whole bunch of this right here, because it's not that Pharaoh's heart was hardened. It's like the Most High literally hardened the Pharaoh's heart because he wanted Pharaoh to get literally all that smoke. He's like, you about to get all this smoke right here. Okay, and so Pharaoh was a trip, but it's like the Most High is literally working inevitably hardening his heart. So he says, and he hardened Pharaoh's heart, and that he hearkened not unto them, as Yahuwah had said. So here's what happens next. It started out, you notice it gets worse and worse. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to show you a wonder. This rod's going to turn, this staff is going to turn to a serpent. It's like, okay, that's not enough. Okay, well, here's what you're going to do next. Let's turn this water into blood. Okay, so literally water gets turned into blood. Excuse me. Yeah, the water gets turned to blood, and not only are they turned to blood, but all the fish died in them. It stunk. Well, and he originally struck the river, but not only the river was affected. It's like the river was affected, but then if you had water in a vessel that you had drawn even beforehand, literally all of the water in Egypt was turned to blood. So stuff that had already been drawn from the river, all of it was turned to blood. And so the magicians of Egypt, they did something similar, and Pharaoh's like, that wasn't nothing. They can do the same thing. The point of the matter, he wasn't able to fix what the Most High had done, but that's another conversation. I digress. But so now here, that happened. We had the water turn to blood. Then from there you had the plague of frogs. So literally, frogs came all up into the house of Egypt, and frogs are literally everywhere. Well, the magicians were kind of able to do that, but again, they weren't able to take away the plagues that Moses had already enacted. And so this is the first, I guess, call it, you see a little bending with Pharaoh, and he called for Moses and Aaron. He said, entreat the Lord that he may take the frogs away from me and my people, and I'll let y'all go. Okay. Well, verse 10, they did it, and the frogs departed from the land. But as before, he hardened his heart and hearkened not unto them, as Yahuwah said. Well, from there, it gets worse. So it started with the frogs. Then there was lice all over Egypt, and the lice were upon everybody. But now here's something that is different right here. In verse 22, although the previous plagues were upon everybody, but here's what he says in verse 22, and what how things started to be different. He's like, and I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies will be there, to the end that thou mayest know that I am Yahuwah in the midst of the earth. So basically, what starts happening on the rest of these plagues is literally it's only happening in Egypt, but not in the land of Goshen. It's happening everywhere outside of Goshen, but it's not happening in Goshen. But because he's like, hey, in case you thought it was for anything else, or if you thought it was something random, I'm about to show you. It's going to happen to the Yao stuff, but these folks that are here, my people in this land, I'm going to differentiate them. You're going to see something different with them as you see with yourself. These are the people that I favor, and you are going to see that there's a difference here. And so that's what he's saying there in verse 22, and how things now start to change. And so, and Yah did so. There were flies in amongst Pharaoh and his folks, but the land of Goshen was spared. And so, so because of that, Pharaoh's called for Moses and Aaron again. He's like, "Go ye and sacrifice to Yah. Go and sacrifice to him. I'm gonna go and let you do this." But he says, where are we at? Verse 29. Let's see. He said, "He's like, hey, I'll go to the Most High, that they might depart. But here's the deal: don't go back on your word again, okay? And not letting the people go. You said you're gonna let them do it. You better do it." Well, sure enough, what happened again? Moses went out, prayed to the Most High. The swarms of flies were gone, but as before, he hardened his heart. Well, at this point, the gloves come off. Okay, you have the plague of boils. So literally, everybody in Egypt was had boils that came onto all over their bodies. And to be honest, at this point, you had the magicians. They couldn't even try to do it because they had boils. Okay, so it wasn't even nothing that they can do. Of course, the folks in Goshen didn't. But from there, you had boils, you had plague of hail, you had, literally plague after plague, and they were getting worse and worse. And same thing kept happening and happened again. Now, this is the one, it was 3 straight days of darkness. And now this darkness, it says, like verse 21, it says, it wasn't no regular darkness. It was so dark that it can be felt. Now, have you ever had it to where it was so dark that you can literally feel the darkness? I don't know about you, but I haven't. But this is how crazy this darkness was. Whatever it was about this darkness, it says it was so dark that the darkness could be felt. But as before, the folks from Goshen, the children of Yahsharel, they had light in their dwellings. Everybody else in Egypt, it was just dark. And but you think that was good enough for Pharaoh? If you said no, you have the right answer because it he did it again. Oops, he did it again. Okay, I'm sorry. Forgive me, guys. But that being said, the final plague, and he told Moses this time Pharaoh didn't have enough because here's what's about to happen now. I'm literally going to go and every firstborn in the land of Egypt, I'm going to kill them all. The firstborn of everybody. And he told Moses, okay, on this night, what's about to happen, you while all this stuff is happening. Oh, sorry. You know what? I'm about to jump ahead again. I'm sorry. Oh no, here it is. Here's what he says. He says, speak now into the ears of the people, let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And it says, and Yahuwah gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man of Moses was great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants and in the sight of the people. And he said, so he literally had them, they literally plundered the people of Egypt, and he gave favor upon the people of Egypt for them to give them their stuff. But he says what's about to happen, he's about to go out and get the firstborn. So that happens. And it got to the point to where literally throughout Egypt, there wasn't a man or there wasn't a house, even of the animals, of their livestock, of everything. If there was firstborn around, they were all killed. And it, like it says in verse 5, it says even the firstborn of the beasts. But what had actually happened was the Most High had also given him a commandment in verse 12, or in chapter 12, I believe it is. He had commanded them that the people of Goshen, i.e. the people of Yahsharel, he said, make sure that so that as this angel of death goes around, I need you to take a lamb and dip a cloth, a hyssop, in blood, and you're going to spread it over your doorposts and then the side posts. Okay, and that therefore, when the angel sees that, he's gonna know he's gonna know that you're one of mine. And so, because of that, the children of Yahsharel, they were spared from their obedience to him. And so they did that, and here it is right here. They shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts. And in that, he gave them the command of Passover. And verse 12, you see all of the requirements of what he told them to do. And he also set this as a continual commandment and a continual observance for the people. And so, so tell them what's about to happen, and also with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the Passover goes directly into the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and it talks about all of that. So, so now you understand that there was the Passover on this day of the month, and it was actually the 14th day of the month, and then on the very following day, there was, and he said, this month shall be called Abib. This is the very first month of the calendar. And so, and on the very following day, of course, that's when they were allowed out of Egypt. But as you see right here, where are we at? We're at chapter, I'm behind on my actual app. People took their dough. Oh, here we are. Here we are, verse 29. Here we are. Verse 29. It came to pass in the midnight, the Yahuwah smote the firstborn in all the land of Egypt, for the firstborn of Pharaoh, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, to the firstborn of the cattle. And at this point, Pharaoh woke up, saw that happened, and at this point, just like the Most High previously said, he's not just going to let you go, he's going to kick you the heck out. And that's what happened, verse 21. And he says, and he called for Moses and Aaron that night. He said, rise up, get you forth from among my people, both ye the children of Israel, and go serve Yah as ye have said. Also get your flocks and herds as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. It's like, get out of here. And so at that they left, and they left in haste. And so, but now verse 34, he said, 34 says, the people took their dough before it was even leavened, and their kneading troughs to be bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. Yeah, so basically they took they clothes and everything, and so quickly they got out, because it's like they were in haste. It's like, okay, like it says, verse 23, it's like that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. It's like, get out of here. It's like, get out of there. And so they took up their dough. They did it before it was leavened. They didn't get it all prepared like they normally would, and they got out of there. And here we go, verse 35. It says, and the children of Yahsharel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And Yahuwah gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. So again, you remember in last week's teaching, in last week's study, the nation of Egypt literally got rich on the back from Yahuwah's people. But in their treatment of Yahuwah, it's like, hey, I gave y'all these riches. You treat my people wrong. He now takes it away. So, and you see that here. So now you would think that would be the end of it, because Pharaoh had seen that that the Most High has a certain thing about his people. The next couple of chapters kind of go into the Passover feast. But so we are here. Now we come down to verse 17. They are out of Egypt. The one thing, here's what it says. It says, and it came to pass when Pharaoh let the people go, that Yah led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For Yah said, lest the peradventure of the people repent when they see war, and they turn unto Egypt. So now let's see this word repent, and you now see the word repent in a different context, because here's really the truth of that word repent. Okay, what he's literally saying is, like, they see the Philistines and they see that war, they're going to turn and want to go back to Egypt. But that's what that word repent means. It literally means to turn around, to turn away from, or to literally to turn around. And so he's like, hey, if they see this war, they're gonna want to return and go back to Egypt. And that's what he's saying. So going back to I kind of showed you that and kind of sent that just so you can see a little bit more of the context of that word repent and what it means. So and you see it here in a different context. But I think it provides better context on what that word actually means. So lest the people turn back when they see war. Okay, so technically the land of the Philistines wasn't far from Egypt. So when but the Most High did not send them through that land. But check this out. As he led them, he led them. Where we at? Verse 20. But with a pillar of here we are. Sorry. Verse 21. Here we go. He took. Oh, where am I at? I'm in 13. Oh, 21 and 22. Here we are. And Yah went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. And he took not the pillar of the cloud away, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. And so now Pharaoh did not have enough. And to be honest, the Most High wasn't done making an example out of him. Okay, so you get here, verse 2 of chapter 14. It says, he literally told them to camp by the sea. Okay, so he commanded Moses to camp there. But he was very intentional on why he wanted them to camp there. Why is it? It says, for Pharaoh will say of the children of Yahsharel that they are entangled in the land and the wilderness has shut them in. So inevitably, Pharaoh would think that they were trapped. He said, and I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart and he's going to follow after y'all. And guess what's going to happen? I'm going to be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, that all the Egyptians will know that I am Yahuwah. So they did so. So they camped there. And so, like the Most High said, verse 5, and it was told to the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this? And have let them go from serving us. So what he did is he hopped on his chariots, got his whole army up, and started pursuing Yahsharel in the wilderness to overtake him and to bring him back. Took 600 of his chosen chariots and the captains over every one of them. And so now the Most High is about to show out. Verse 16, he says, oh, you know what? Back up. He's like, Pharaoh caught up with him. And what did the people do? They started grumbling. He's like, verse 12, it says, didn't we tell you back in Egypt? Just let us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians, because hadn't it been better for us to be better than there than us to die out here? It's like, we could have stayed there and kept working. At least we would have been alive. But Moses said, fear not, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahuwah, which he shall show you today. For the Egyptians that you seen today, you will see them no more. You see them today, this is going to be the last time you ever see them. Okay? Because the Most High is about to work. So the Most High told him to lift up the staff on the sea. And he says, y'all going to walk over on dry ground. Okay? And he tells them what he's about to do. Verse 19, now the cloud that was before them, and it was the angel of the Most High, But the cloud that was before them moved to the back to separate them and the Egyptians. Because he's like, hey, I don't want them coming up on you before I'm ready. So what he did, he stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahuwah caused the sea, verse 21, and Yahuwah caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind by night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. So literally the entire sea was separated to where they were literally walking on dry land. And so they literally went into the midst of the sea. They literally started walking into what was water. And instead of there being water that they were walking through, it was dry land, and there was water on either side of them. So both sides of them was water. It's like, I've seen the movies in the past, and then just all the visuals. It's like, it just made me, as I think about it, it's like, just made you want to touch it. It's like, that's me. I'm weird like that. But yeah, literally on both sides, there were literally walls of water, and they were walking on dry ground. So Pharaoh and the rest of the Egyptians, they're like, you know what? They on dry ground. We gonna get them. If they gonna go through the water, we gonna follow them into the water. Big dummy. Sure enough. Sure enough, Pharaoh followed them into the water, and the Most High worked again. Surprise, surprise. Here's what he did. Verse 25, they followed him in there, and he literally took off their chariot wheels so that they couldn't go nowhere. So yes, they followed him into the water, or excuse me, they followed him into the sea that was dried up. But now those big pretty chariots no longer had wheels. So they stuck. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, now stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters may go back to where they were. And sure enough, the sea returned to its strength, and the Egyptians fled against it, but Yahuwah overthrew the Egyptians into the middle of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots, the horsemen, and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them, and there remained not so much as one of them. So he literally drowned all the Egyptians that tried to pursue him. He made an example out of Pharaoh for messing with his people. And that's what happens when you mess with the children of the Most High. And the whole next chapter is them literally writing and singing songs of the goodness of the Most High. So they literally are praising the Most High. So that's literally the entirety of the next chapter. Well, most of the next chapter, but then what actually ends up happening is, again, after all of this, somehow the children of Yahsharel, their faith in the Most High was still not there. Don't know why. Sorry, this is earlier with Kelly, but somehow the people of Yahsharel still did not have the faith in the Most High. Their stomach started growling, and as pretty much most of the time, they started murmuring against Moses. And but here's the problem: is Moses didn't have the power to do nothing. And the Most High was like, hey, they ain't murmuring against you, they're murmuring against me. But that being said, what the Most High ends up doing is still showing himself. And what he did is verse 4 is like, I'm gonna show them even better. It's like, I'm gonna rain heaven, or I'm gonna rain bread from heaven. I'm gonna rain bread from heaven to fix their hunger. And here's what it says: it's like, also to prove whether or not that they're going to obey me and walk in my law or not. And here's what he says: it says, and it shall come to pass that on the sixth day they shall prepare. Basically says, each day they're supposed to go out and prepare just enough. But on the seventh or on the sixth day, you're not supposed to just prepare what you need for that day, but for the following day. Because as we know, the seventh day is for rest, and he says that. And the other piece, what it says, on each day, you're only supposed to get enough and get rid of it by whatever you haven't eaten, get rid of it. And so what ends up happening is you have some of them that decides not to obey, and those people who kept it, it literally, the food turned into worms. But verse 8, here you go. Here's what it says: and Moses said, "This shall be, Yahuwah shall give you." They were complaining about meat. Okay, so it's like, even after he rained bread from heaven, it's like, man, shoot. I mean, this bread's kind of cool, but shoot, in Egypt we had meat to eat. We had some good stuff. We had some fried chicken. We was kind of living it up. They were complaining about not having no meat. And so, and like it says, your murmurings are not against us, but against Yahuwah. And Moses spake unto Aaron, say unto all the congregation of the children of Yahsharel, come near before Yahuwah, for he hath heard your murmurings. So tells them what to do with the bread. He gave him bread, he gave him meat. And long story short, despite a whole nother miracle, that wasn't enough. And so let me make sure, I want to make sure what the end of this week is, so I don't end up going over again. Bear with me here. So we're on chapter 16. This plan for this week, I think it's chapter 18. Let me double check, make sure. Yeah, up to chapter 18. So yeah, we're good. But so gave him so verse 13, he gave him meat. He's like, he gave him quail, and gave him to the point to where they literally covered the camp with quail. Verse 14. Sorry. Oh, verse 20, here we are. And like I was saying before, let no man leave of it till the morning. He said, gather just what you need and don't leave any of it in there till the morning. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left it until the morning. And it bred worms and stank. And Moses was mad at them, was wroth with them. Okay. Then on the sixth day, as he said, told them to gather twice as much. Verse 22. Told them to gather twice as much. And because the next day is supposed to be a day of rest, and you don't need to be doing no gathering on the seventh day. But as became the regular, verse 27, it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day together, and needless to say, they found nothing. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, how long refuse ye to keep my commandments and laws? It's like he gave y'all a full 6 days of literally laying it out there for you, and just literally told you to rest on the seventh day, and you still can't do that. But that tended to be the repeating theme here. But that being said, this went on as far as with the manna. They ate manna for 40 years until they came into the land, to a land inhabited, inevitably to the promised land. So for 40 years. Now an omer is the 10th part of an ephah. So that was something that I was kind of interested in. But let's see. The following chapter, a couple of high points. We're almost there. A couple of high points is, yeah, okay. They were thirsty. They groaned against them about water, same thing. The Most High brought that to them as well. But now, the Most High also has their back in battle. So the Amalekites actually came against Moses, and in that, the Most High had Moses literally hold up his staff the entire time, and as long as he was holding up their staff while they were down there fighting, Joshua, who's actually leading them, as long as Moses is holding up his staff, they were winning, and when he brought down his staff, they were losing. So literally what they did is they ended up putting rocks under his arms because his arms got tired, as you can imagine. And they put stones under his arms to help him hold his arms up. And the Most High gave them victory over the Amalekites. And last but not least, chapter 18, Jethro's father-in-law comes to visit him. Well, in that time, he observed Moses literally from day and night judging the people's issues, because obviously he spoke the word of the Most High. He had direct access to the Most High. So literally all day, from morning to evening, the people went up to Moses and asking him to judge their issues. Jethro sees this and provides some good counsel. It's like, hey man, you're gonna wear out doing all of this. So here's what I need you to do. Okay, find some wise men. Find some wise men and men that fear the Most High, and that are going to be just to the people. And he separated them out. He says, yes, such as fear Yah, and men of truth, hating covetousness, and to place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10. And so basically, he literally put them over the people. He's like, so on the minor matters, have them take care of those. But then the more weightier matters, have them come to you. Okay? So the stupid stuff, you ain't gotta, you don't have to deal with that. Let these wise men take care of that. And then the weightier matters, have them come to you. And he hearkened unto him and consulted the Most High. And sure enough, that's what he did. So going therefore and kind of throughout, that's how the matters of Yahsharel were handled. So, but that right there, that's where this week's lesson ended. I'm glad I looked ahead of time to kind of know where where that is, so I didn't end up going over this week like I did last week. But yeah, so that's where we are at the end of this week. That's kind of a overall summary. But in that, you see kind of how they, for one, how they got to Egypt, how the Most High, because of where they were, the lands where they were, the land prospered because the Most High's people were there. But in that, the people mistreated his people, and the Most High dealt with them accordingly. That's something you begin to see as a theme. You treat his people wrong, he then takes care of it. He handles his people. He loves his people. That's still a thing to this day. But with that, we'll go ahead and end this week. If this is bless you, let's first of all thank the Most High for it, and we're gonna pray that that this is not the end of it. That this what we got out of this lesson, what we got out of our reading this week, is not just words, but the Most High giving you or giving us a peek into his personality, and really that's the point of reading his word, is not just to learn some things about him, but really to get to know the Most High. This is the passion of mine. I love this. I really the more you get to know the Most High, the more you get to read his word, the more you get to study his word, and the more he speaks to you, it's a lot to it. So, and really my whole thing in this entire series is for us to grow not only in our knowledge with the Most High, but grow in our relationships with the Most High. So let's go ahead and finish this week with going back to him. Abba Yah, we thank you once again for your word. We thank you for yourself and revealing to us you. We ask that you continue to speak to us. We ask that you use this time, or that you use the words that you spoke to us to grow us, and that we may that your will might be done through it. I know what you had for me in this, and the growth that you have for me, but I also understand that you might have something different from other listeners. So I ask that you might use this and take this for your purpose, for the upbuilding of your people, your kingdom. We ask that you continue to be with us, to continue to grow us closer to you. We thank you for who you are. We love you. We give you all the glory and all the honor and all the praise. And in the end, let your will be done. And we put this under the authority of your will. We thank you. We love you. In the mighty name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Hallelujah. Well, that being said, thank you for joining. Again, if this has blessed you and continues to bless you, please hop on my channel. It's no longer vain. This is a part of this is a part of a larger series called the Approved Series. Hop on and subscribe if this is something that blesses you and continues to bless you. So please do so. Also, you can see additional content on my channel. Additional content as far as with each week, and so also if share it with others. So again, I love you, and blessings in the Most High.